Welcome back to the Snowpointcast. Today we're going to be going over a deck from 2012, actually one of the World Championship first place lists from 2012. We're going over a buddy of mine's list, Chase Moloney's first place Mewtwo Eels list from 2012. So him and a buddy of his and mine as well, Trevor Reed, both worked on this list, and it is a really good list. But yeah, let's get right into it. So starting off with 3 Mewtwo. Mewtwo's going to be your main attacker of the deck. Really solid Pokemon. So 170 HP, 2 Retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. X-Ball is the attack on Mewtwo for 2 Colorless. Does 20 damage times the number of energy attached to this Pokemon and the defending Pokemon. So honestly, just really base good attack for double Colorless energy, doing 40, and then plus more depending on if they have energy on them as well. Mewtwo Wars is one of the reasons that this deck is one of the better decks in the format, because this Pokemon one-shots itself. So let's say you got a Mewtwo and your opponent has a Mewtwo, and your opponent got a Mewtwo. So if you guys both have a double Colorless energy, you're doing 160, which puts you at 10 shy, but with a plus power that knocks out. And then you can just go double Colorless plus power knockout, and you can easily go, okay, say I get knocked, and then I go up, I go DCE plus power, and then I knock back, and then it's very easily gets into a Mewtwo war, as it's called. So it's just Mewtwo's knocking each other out. But this deck does that so effectively. It's one of the best decks in the format at trading Mewtwo's for a couple of reasons. And one of those reasons is because of the Eelektrik line. So for Tynamo, you play 4 Tynamo because the Eelektrik is super important to this deck. So Tynamo's got 40 HP, single retreat, weakness to fighting, Thunder Waves, the reason you play this one. 10, flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. Maybe I might like to see one of the other Tynamo, just the Snipe 10 one, because it's really good to chip a Mewtwo for 10, but I think that 4 of the paralyzed one is also pretty solid too. And then this is the reason that you're playing those guys for the Eelektrik. Eelektrik is so good. So 90 HP, 2 retreat, and a weakness to fighting. So that 90 HP is actually going to come into play a little bit later with another card in the list. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So Dynamo is the ability. Once during your turn before you attack, you may attach a lightning energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So that energy acceleration obviously just has a lot of synergy with Mewtwo, right? Like if you're attacking with Mewtwo, you're attacking based on the energy on your active and your opponent's active, so loading a bunch of energy is usually good for you. Also, it makes it so that you don't have to hit plus power to hit the knockout. This deck does play plus power, and you can do that on a Mewtwo War, but alternatively, another thing you can do that's a little bit more problematic for a lot of other decks is attach an additional energy. So you can go Mewtwo, double Colorless, lightning energy, and then that's enough energy to one-shot an opposing Mewtwo with a double Colorless energy on it. So you can hit that in one turn as well, right? You can go Mewtwo EX, bench DCE, and then Eelektrik Dynamotor, put that energy on, and then you're counter knocking out. So you don't have to have that plus power in your hand. You could just have that lightning energy in your discard pile, which is a lot more consistent for sure, especially with N being one of the big hand disruption supporters in this format. So you kind of have to be careful of that. But Eelektrik is so good. It's already on the board, so you don't have to ever worry about that. Really solid card. So you play 2 Smeargle as well. Smeargle's a solid support setup Pokemon. So 70 HP, colorless type, single retreat, no weakness to fighting. Portrait, once during your turn before you attack, if Smeargle is your active Pokemon, you may look at your opponent's hand. If you do, choose a supporter card you find there and use the effect of that card as the effect of this power. So Smeargle is great for setting up, right? Like you need to find evolution Pokemon, you need to find basics, you need to find Mewtwo's, you need to hit lots of stuff before you can start really attacking. But Portrait is kind of that in-between turn when you don't really have your Electrics out, might have missed a Mewtwo. You can just put a Smeargle up and then Portrait, see what your opponent has. Another good reason to Portrait is to see what your opponent's got in their hand. You know, if they don't have much in their hand, you might not end them compared to maybe if you're thinking about ending them kind of thing. But Portrait is just a really solid setup. One of the really cool parts about Portrait is Professor Juniper is a really popular supporter in this format. Really solid card. Just discard your hand, draw 7. But getting those lightning energies in the discard is a really big deal. So if you're able to steal someone else's Juniper for the turn and then you discard your lightnings plus another supporter, it just makes your turn 2s really aggressive and deadly. And Chase Moloney can definitely attest to some turn 2 triple eel turns, which is a pretty deadly part of this deck for sure that you can hit. Okay, and then getting into some of the tech attackers. So you're playing one Raikou EX. Raikou EX has got 170 HP, single retreat, and a weakness to fighting. Thunderfang is the first attack. Not really the attack you play it for, but kind of cool in some situations. So for lightning and colorless, it does 30. Flip a coin of heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. Not often going to be using this attack. Bolt is the main attack that this guy's here for. So lightning, colorless, discard all lightning energy attached to this Pokemon. Then it does 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So you can hit them on the bench, which is really cool. Setting up knockouts is really good. depending on what your opponent's playing, you can just straight take a prize with that. Like in the Eelektrik, this is a really solid card because you can just snipe out an Eelektrik and then you kill an Eelektrik with the Raikou. But it's really situational, you know, like if your opponent, if you had a really good turn 1 and you're able to hit this on turn 2, and your opponent has like a Smeargle on the bench and they're kind of not drawing anything and they didn't find a switch option, you can just snipe their Smeargle out too before they get a chance to portrait and set up. So definitely a really cool attacker in a lot of situations. Another thing Raikou's good for is if your opponent retreats a damaged Pokemon to the bench. Like let's say you whip a knockout with Mewtwo on a Darkrai or something, and then they just free retreat it to the bench, attack with something else. You can still take that 2 prizes later if you do so want to. Then you also play 1 Zekrom. So Zekrom's just a solid powerhouse, 130 HP, lightning type, 2 retreat, and a weakness to fighting. Outrage is the first attack. It does 20 plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on Zekrom. And then Bolt Strike for a lightning colorless does 120 damage, which is a fair amount of damage. And then this Pokemon does 40 damage to itself. The main reason that you're going to be playing Zekrom is to force your opponent into a 7 prize game. This is essentially a free prize because if you're attacking with 3 Mewtwo's and you go Mewtwo, force them to kill a Mewtwo, 2 Mewtwo's, they're at 4 prizes. Force them to kill a Zekrom. They have 1 prize left, 4 prizes taken rather, and then it's 5 prizes that they've taken. Then they still have to kill another EX for the game, whether it's a Raikou or your last Mewtwo. So definitely a really cool way to force your opponent to 7 prizes and a solid game plan. It's just free damage essentially at that point. Okay, so getting into some of the trainer cards, you're going to be playing 4 Junk Arm. Junk Arm is a really good card. So Junk Arm, discard 2 cards from your hand, search your discard pile for a trainer card, show it to your opponent, and put it in your hand. So it's kind of tricky wording, especially with this card being from the Heart Gold Soul Silver set and black and white printing item cards. So technically Junk Arm can only grab like item type cards, you know? So like Max Potion is an item, Random Receiver is an item. They're technically items. And then Dual Ball, alternatively, is a trainer, but it's not an item. So it can grab the trainers, but it's the same archetype of card, right? Not like non-supporter, non-stadium trainer cards is what Junk Arm can grab. But really good for one, just item recovery, right? Like getting your items back is really solid. But alternatively, also discarding cards in this deck is very powerful because you want those lightning energies in the discard so that you can find Eelektrik. The Junk Arm is that main card that's going to be able to get your lightning energies in the discard. It's also just really good to get your resources back. Honestly, just an amazing card. I wish Pokemon printed more cards like this. You're also going to be playing 3 Max Potion. So Max Potion, heal all damage from one of your Pokemon, then discard all energy attached to that Pokemon. So I really like this Max Potion count in this list. 3 Max Potion, 4 Junk Arm lets you have 7 in a game if you really need it. Usually you don't need 7 Max Potions, but having that option for lots of Max Potions is really sweet because you can go like, have a Mewtwo up, attack with a Mewtwo, right? And then you put a bunch of energy on attack, take a hit from a Darkrai or whatever, or if a counter Mewtwo doesn't knock you out, like let's say you have 2 energy and they only find 2 and they don't find the plus power, they don't knock you out. You can just pay the retreat cost, go to the bench. You don't have any energy on it anymore, or very little, and then you just Max Potion it. So that essentially wastes your opponent's turn when you do that if they fail to knock you out. So really good, especially when this deck just excels at taking knockouts because you just load so much energy on a Mewtwo so fast that Max Potion just makes your trades that much better when your opponent's damage might not stick. And you're also going to be playing 3 Dual Ball. So Dual Ball is a great setup card. Flip 2 coins for each head, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand. So great for finding Tynamos, great for finding Mewtwo's, Smeargle, Raikou, or Zekrom. The only thing that doesn't get is your Eelektrik. But yeah, I mean, if you flip 2 heads, getting to find a Mewtwo and a Tynamo is a really good setup, especially if you have multiple Dual Balls in your hand. Your setup can really pop off. Junk Arm for Dual Ball early, I'll note, is a really good call as well, just because it keeps your basic Pokemon consistent. You just need to find Tynamos and Mewtwo early, so if you're able to find that, then you're going to be able to set up for the rest of your game. Okay, you're going to be playing 3 Switch too. You know, Eelektrik only accelerates to benched Pokemon. If they hit the active, that'd be really good, but it doesn't do that. It only accelerates to benched Pokemon, so being able to switch and put different active or different bench Pokemon into the active after you've Dynamoted to it is really good. Another reason you play 3 Switch is because of Smeargle. So getting a Smeargle in the active early game is really important, and then getting it out of there later is also important. And you know, you can discard there's no energy on it, right? So you don't put the energy on, so you don't really I mean, I guess you can attach retreat, but usually you're going to want to be attaching to a Mewtwo if you have that option. So Switch just keeps you mobile. Then you also play 3 Pokemon Catcher. This card is also very good. So Pokemon Catcher, switch your opponent's active Pokemon with one of his or her benched Pokemon. So just Gust of Wind. You just get to use a trainer card and bring up your opponent's bench Pokemon. This card actually got errated later, but this is pre-errata, where the catcher just is an item card that brings up your opponent's bench Pokemon. Really, really good with Mewtwo, especially if your opponent, like, they have like 1 energy on a Mewtwo. Let's say they missed a DCE and they go, well, if I put an energy this turn, then I can get an energy next turn and plus power, then kill a Mewtwo. You can just like go Mewtwo, DCE, Dynamotor, Pokemon catcher, plus power, and then you kill that Mewtwo with 1 energy, which is like such a crazy thing that this deck can do. Like the energy accelerant with Mewtwo in Mewtwo Wars is it seems unfair. It seems very, very powerful. You also play 2 Level Ball. Level Ball is part of your Pokemon search, so it helps find your Tynamos and Eelektriks. It can also find your Smeargles as well if you need to find that, so it's kind of good for setting up as well, but being able to find the Tynamo and Eelektrik line is really solid, just because hitting Eelektriks is a very important part of your deck. You're also going to be playing 2 plus power. Like I was saying, plus power is super important in Mewtwo Wars. If you're going to one-shot a Mewtwo that has a double colorless energy with only a double colorless energy, you need one of these bad boys. And you only play 2 because with 4 Junk Arm, you know, you kind of have access to them as soon as you're able to play them and they're in the discard. So let's play 1 Ultra Ball. Just another Pokemon search. Kind of helps get that lightning energy in the discard as well. Discard 2 cards from your hand and then search your deck for a Pokemon. So it finds any Pokemon in your deck, which is really nice. You know, you're able to get that Eelektrik, Tynamo, or one of your Tech Attackers or Smeargle or Mewtwo, kind of whatever you need. But then also having that ability to discard is good as well. Then you play 1 Super Rod as well. So this is your Pokemon recovery for the deck. So it says shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. So if your opponent is able to knock out a bunch of Electrics early with, you know, Pokemon catcher, Night Spear with a Darkrai, that's one of the big threats that can kind of slow you down a little bit. Being able to recover those and put those back in the deck so that you can get your Electrics back is a really good option for sure. You also play 1 Random Receiver. I do really like 1 Random Receiver in this deck. So Random Receiver, flip cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a supporter card, and then put it in your hand and shuffle all the rest of the cards back. So you play only draw cards for supporters. So every single time you Random Receiver, it's going to find you a card that's going to net you at least a couple of cards. So great that you can Junk Arm for that as well. As soon as you play it, if you're going through a supporter drought, you can't find a supporter, you just Junk Arm for a Random Receiver and you're back in business. Okay, so you also play 1 Stadium, 1 Skyarrow Bridge. So Skyarrow Bridge says the retreat cost of each basic Pokemon in play is 1 colorless less. So that's great for getting your Tynamos out of the active if you start a Tynamo. It's great for switching your Smeargle out too. Like let's say you start a Tynamo and you have a Smeargle on the bench, you can just retreat to the Smeargle, use Portrait, and then if you're set up to attack next turn, because they only have 1 retreat and they're basics, you can just retreat into the Mewtwo and then start swinging with the Mewtwo. So really cool mobility option there. And in a stadium, you know, if your opponent doesn't play any stadiums, he's just going to stay there for the whole game, which is really nice. Okay, so getting into the supporter cards, starting off with 4 Professor Juniper. Like I was saying, Professor Juniper just says discard your hand, draw 7. Great to get lightning energies in the discard, but also just probably one of the best draw supporters Pokemon's ever printed. Drawing 7 cards off the top of your deck is really, really good. So yeah, really, really solid card there. You're going to be playing 4 N. So N is a really interesting card. I really love N. So N says each player shuffles their hand into his or her deck and then draws for their amount of prize cards. So early game, it's a shuffle draw 6, which is great for finding Pokemon and, you know, energies and stuff that you need to set up. And then late game, it's really good to disrupt your opponent, especially because this deck doesn't really care about getting disrupted into the late game. Because you have Electrics on your board and lightning energies in your discard, hopefully, unless you had a really awful setup, then N doesn't really affect you, right? Let's say you're both at 2 prizes left and you go, or like 3 or something, and you go N, and then you shuffle yourself down to 3. You can keep Electrics like dynamotoring, so you're hitting energy on your board, but your opponent might whiff, and whiffing energy in the Mewtwo mirror is really, really rough because it means you probably just lose the game at that point. So N, really, really solid early game draw, and then a really solid late game disruption card. Also play 2 Pont. So Professor Oak's new theory, shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw 6 cards. You know, just staple, solid supporter draw. It does the same thing as N does in the early game, but anytime during the game, just like shuffle draw 6 is just a really, really solid option to have. Okay, so getting into the energy now. So you're going to be playing a fat 8 lightning energy. So, you know, kind of makes sense. It's a pretty solid number. You're getting them back a lot of the time, and you have a lot of options to discard them as well, but you have to find them. So 8 is, I really like 8 as a number, especially with 4 DCE. You're playing a 12 total energy line, which is super chill. I think that's like really great, especially with Eelektrik. I think that like Chase and Trevor are just really great at building deck lists. Just the numbers, they get the numbers so right on a lot of the stuff, and I just love this list. It's such a good list. But yeah, 4 DCE, super important in the Mewtwo mirror. And you know, it lets you outrage with Zekrom, I guess, for 2. It's an option to just tank in the active, but being able to hit those DCEs so that you can consistently knock out other Mewtwo's is really sweet. Okay, well, this has been Mewtwo Eels from 2012. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. And if you're not subscribed, definitely hit that sub button. We are doing a giveaway at 500 subs. We've got some spicy stuff. I'm gonna leak one more thing on the giveaway today. So we've already revealed that there's going to be some world sleeves and a pin as well of some sorts, but there's also going to be a perler. And for those of you who don't know what a perler is, it's pretty much these little plastic beads that you can make look like whatever you want. And I made a Pokemon of one, and it is in the gift basket, I guess, in the gift basket for the 500 subs. So yeah, definitely leave a sub if you're not subbed. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you next time.